really constantly gear up to present. And then Kurt Lancaster, also from the School of Communication, is going to talk about visual effects and your slide. So, so without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and get started. I'm just going to give a brief overview and things that you should do and you shouldn't do. And mostly things that you shouldn't do, don't do what I do. But recently, I wanted to give a presentation to my fellow colleagues, the fellow deans from all of your different academic units. So I thought I would do my overview of where we are on this project in 3 minutes. You know, I thought I might as well model the 3-minute behavior. And so I made my one slide, and this was my one slide. And basically, I thought, oh, I'd use it today to do the brief overview that I was going to give. We received 30 abstracts, you know. These are the colleges. As you can imagine, we got the majority of applications from the College of Engineering, Forestry, and Natural Sciences. But all of the colleges, except for the School of Business that chose not to participate, are represented in this group. April 16th, you got to remember that date. And whether you advance to the finals or not, you need to plan on being there, you know. And you can they present again next year? We haven't talked about that until today. Yeah. So next year, if you want to present on a different topic or whatever, an expansion of your topic or where your research is, you know, it's a good idea to come to it. Training and resources, that's the library. Funding. The funding is a question. We do have funding, and as I said, this was for the deans. I was trying to get more money out of them. But we do have cash prizes. For the first prize is $1,000. The second one is, what's the second prize?
So the first prize is $1,000, second place is $500, and then third place is the $250, and then we have a People's Choice Award for $250, and then the People's Choice Runner-Up, which is $100. So there's 5 prizes.
So half of the finalists will get a cash prize. So the odds are really good. We have 30, and at least 5 will get cash prizes. The one thing that I was reading today in our guidelines, or in the materials that we've been reviewing that other universities have done, you know, if somebody does not show up, you know, so the people who are ranked lower, the alternates can kind of move up. So we will have a full slate of finalists that will present on the final April 16th. So all of you need to plan on being there. I think the biggest value added to this whole competition is just not the cash prizes. It's your ability to learn a new skill or to enhance a skill that you already have on how to communicate your research. And regardless of whether you win or not, you are a winner by just participating in this competition. So the 3MRP, and you know, this is going to be reiterated by our other presenters too, but just briefly, you know, what is your problem statement? What are you studying? You know, what is the impact and the benefits? So much of our research is funded by the public, taxpayers. When you get an NSF grant, it's really coming out of the taxes that you and I pay. And so what is the benefit of this research? And somehow you need to convey it to the audience in a way that they can understand. One of the presentations that we are going to watch in a few minutes is on Facebook. And young girls and using Facebook, that was her research. It was so exciting to read that, or hear that, because all of us can relate to a Facebook. How many of us don't have a Facebook account? I have at least looked at somebody else's account or whatever. You've all seen Facebook. And so, real human interest, you know, you could relate to it. You can, you know what they're talking about, and so it really impacts the benefits that it has for the public. Your ability to communicate, and you cannot emphasize this more. Communicate, communicate, communicate in a way that's easily understandable, language that's jargon-free. You know, I used to teach at some point in my former life. I've been at NAU for 23 years. So the first 9 years of my career, I taught classes, and I teach psychology. I'm a psychologist, and I had an engineer in my classroom. And maybe he thought because I look Indian or whatever, I am Indian, but he, at the end of the class, he came up to me and he said, "Were you speaking English the whole time?" So I said, "Yeah, what do you mean?" You know, I was doing a abnormal psychology type lecture, and I was using things like, well, there's schizophrenia and depression and manic depressive and bipolar, and I was using all this, in my field, common language. And this guy who was an engineer, had never taken a psychology class, anyway, he was in my graduate level class, he was listening to me and he thought, maybe she's speaking another language at the end of it. He didn't understand a word of the lecture, or most of it, And then I had to go back and say, oh, I think you need to take an intro class before you take this advanced graduate class. But that's the jargon in my profession. And anyone who's a psychologist has no problems following me. But anyone who's not a psychologist had a lot of problems following me. And so that's something to keep in mind as you talk about your work and how can you relate it to a non-specialist, someone who's not in your discipline. And as I said, it will help you in other professional arenas, and then have fun through it all. So I showed you my first slide. And as I was preparing for the, come on. As I was preparing for the little presentation on where we are with the 3 MRPs and the applications we received in trying to get more money from the deans, I thought I should mimic a model, the 3-minute. And so I wrote my script, very important. So this is part of the training. I wrote my script, and then I read through it. And as I read through it, I had so much of redundancy. I said, the library is my partner earlier, and then later on I said, we are so grateful for the library. I said, oh my God, I referenced, much as I love the librarians and all their help, I referenced them 3 times. So basically I was repeating myself. And so then I removed those lines, and then I reread it, and then I realized, why do I say it this way? This is not sounding good. I ended up writing it about 5 times, and this was just not even for the, I wanted to model good presentation. And I kept changing, and then I said, I have an extra word here, and I have an extra word there, and I kept taking it out, till I finally got it to a place where I thought it was smooth, and it flowed well, and try to avoid those. Anyway, so that's just, so what not to do. When you do come to this event, you want to come dressed up like you would go for a 3-minute interview. Okay, so looking professional does not hurt. I know this is Flagstaff, but I wouldn't wear Birkenstocks and socks, and but just like you were going to an interview. Look professional, but don't go over the top, and I don't know, no slide transitions. You're allowed 1 slide. Okay, avoid muttering, ahs. No looking at the floor. Nothing worse than somebody looking at the floor the entire time talking and not making contact with your audience. Sometimes they recommend, and we're going to talk about this later on, so I don't want to steal from my other presenters, but it does help to make eye contact if you can with almost every person in the room. People feel connected to you. They know then, you're interested in them and they're interested in you. No hands in the pocket, no sex, religion, or politics. I want to share something on the no sex, religion, or politics. My son, both my kids at various points in their life participated in Odyssey of the Mind. How many of you are familiar with that? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Did y'all do it?
No, my husband is a teacher at one of our local high schools, so I hear all about it.
So it's 8 minutes. So I'm used to this 3 minutes, 8 minutes. 8 minutes, you got to do this whole skit, and believe me, you can pack in a lot. And in fact, we get it done in around 6 minutes for the most part, because we cannot run over on time. And one year, the kids came up with a solution to their problem, a little skit. And they had these puppet dolls, and they really overemphasized it was a female, the breasts of the female doll. They look cute, but they were overemphasized. And they went through the first level, second level, third level competition, and one of the judges got really offended, and she docked them so many points they didn't advance to the finals. And so she said, that's a sex symbol that you use, and you're degrading women, and she really, and they'd done so well. It was a great skit, it was funny, it was humorous, but you never know who you're going to offend. And they obviously offended one of the judges, which hurt them, and they did not advance. So that's kind of one of the guidelines. You never know who you're presenting to, who your audience is, and remember you're talking to a non-specialist audience. And you've got only 3 minutes, make every second count. Presentation success, keep it simple. Unexpected, tell something that people don't know, something that they're going to learn something about, they're excited. Concrete, can you use a metaphor to capture? It needs to be credible, it doesn't need to be research, it doesn't need to be that people won't believe what you're saying or what you're doing. If you can interest it to a human interest, I mentioned the word Facebook earlier, everybody knows Facebook. Now, they say people in my age group are some of the biggest users of Facebook, even more so than the 18-year-olds. So you can link that to your audience, Passion for your work, you have to be passionate. If you're bored with your research, guess what, your audience is going to be bored. Can you use a story, You notice in my presentation so far, how many stories have I used? I've used my son Odyssey, I've used about 3 stories. And most of you will probably listen to that story and remember that story. And so, now you only have 3 minutes. I'm giving myself way more time here. But have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Oh, it's done there too. Okay. So, understand your group. We are inviting as many people as we can, so you are presenting to a very non-specialist audience. Your judges are going to be from all walks of life, So practice, practice, practice. You cannot emphasize this. When people come out looking, when you go to a play, you go to a performance, and it looks effortless. The more effortless it looks, the more practice has gone behind the scenes to make it look effortless, So, okay, librarian?
Trying to be a gentleman. So my name is Kevin, and this is Summer, and we're really excited about this research project. It has research in the title. I'm a research librarian. It seems like a perfect match. And here's what I know from working with graduate students and many of you, is you're already expert researchers. We get that. So this is a pleasure for us to work with. And what we want to offer you in terms of support and collegial assistance is the opportunity to work with research librarians who specialize in your area. So you have this great idea, and essentially you're doing a review, a deep lit review. And while you're already these expert researchers, there are librarians at this library who specialize in your area. They'd be happy to sit down and be a sounding board to you. Hear your thoughts, hear your ideas. Get an idea of where you've already gone to the research, and maybe help do a little bit more research. Look at the niches, look at the abstracts, see where the profession is going, see where the interest in your discipline is on these topics, so you can really get a huge sense of that. And sometimes it's a matter of just sitting down with one of the research librarians and making sure that you haven't missed anything. And that's huge. So you have these collegial partners who are vested in your success, and they're excited because this is a high level of research. And if you choose to, they'll partner with you to kind of touch base, make sure you've got everything, and also get those core elements, the visuals, the images, the data, qualitative, quantitative, and then maybe help you to connect to that idea of how it's supporting your discipline, how it's supporting your profession, why it's interesting. So that's one of our offers. The other side of it is all of the librarians work closely with graduate students, but also the faculty. So we're there to support their research, their teaching and learning, and make sure that they're engaged and have all of these great things. And they also present, and they also publish, and they also go to all of these different things. So we spend all of this time working with you graduate students and the faculty and each other. They're pretty good about knowing what works and what doesn't. Everything that Ramona talked about, but how to present, how to integrate your research, how to capture people's interests. So one of the things that they're willing to do too is, if you wish, and you schedule it far enough ahead of time, they, or a couple of them, would be happy to sit down and watch your 3-minute interview and maybe critique it and peer review and give a little insight on how they reacted to it as professional researchers, members of the academic community. So those are 2 huge things that we'd like to offer you. But then beyond all of that, the library has really committed resources and attention to detail on the technology for presenting and getting this stuff out here. And that's what Summer's going to talk about.
So there are two other ways that we can help you with that component. One, I don't know how many of you have been back here to the studios so far. Is this your first time? This is a brand new area in the library. We offer rooms such as this one where you can come in and practice, as Ramona said. You know, it's a great opportunity to bring folks in here and have them watch you and give you some feedback. But you also have the opportunity to check out, and there's some cards up here with this information, to check out some equipment that is now available to NAU and CCC students both. You're all NAU graduate students. But you can check out a video camera like the one in the back and a tripod and set it up and record your presentation and then go back and watch it. You know, you can do that in any of these studio rooms. All of that checkout happens at the main desk up front. But then you are also welcome to check in with the folks back here at the studio's desk, and we have cards for the studio's desk as well. And we are here to help you get that set up, to get set up in the room. We can take a look at the visuals that you're preparing. We have a lot of folks who work back here who have a background in visual communications. So if you are looking at your slide and you're wanting some feedback on how it relates and translates the information you're hoping to translate, they have, you know, they've got some great experience there that you can draw from.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. That about wraps.
So maybe I would just share on that really quickly, is when you come down here, the library has restructured its support to put the most talented, the people who have the most knowledge and insight on the floor so that they can work to you. Someone was saying, essentially, the people who work these desks are educational technologists, visual literacy type people. And they're really highly talented. They're kind of some of the top people at the university. And we have them in this area so that they can connect to you and work with you. We have a full suite of different technology for you to create, edit, add, integrate. And we have the people right there. So as you come in and you like, oh, I kind of feel like I have an idea and I've heard about this technology, or I've seen a visual representation, I'm not really sure. Chances are that the people at the desk right here can work with you right there, or they'll say like, oh, hold on a second, you got to know about this person, and they're working on this and they have the sense, and they're kind of creating these professional presentations for the rest of the university. So as you come in, feel free, feel liberated to really take this one slide, this one opportunity to capture everything in 3 minutes, and know that you have a whole support mechanism of people who really get it, know how to use it, and will help you to integrate it. All you got to do is come up and ask.
So I just wanted to point out really fast, the studio's card has our contact information on the back, and like Kevin said, those folks are available at the desk, but they're also available to set up a consultation with. So if you wanted to set something up in advance, you could do so, and we can meet with you and go over everything or help you with the room or what have you. And then the checkout equipment card has the main desk contact information, and that's, like I said, where you can go to reserve and check out the equipment. It's also where you go to reserve ahead of time these rooms to use and check these out as well.
So thanks so much. We're really excited for you, and we're looking forward to working with you. So thanks.
Well, thanks for having me come over and talk to you about oral communication. It's something that I've been doing for a long time. I don't know how many speeches I've listened to and graded and critiqued, but it's in the thousands, I'm sure. I've been teaching public speaking in some form starting as a grad student back in 1979. And then I spent a number of years doing some judging of high school and college debate speech. So I've listened to lots of speeches, and I still teach some of the public speaking speeches, public speaking classes at NAU. It's very difficult to take a lot of content and put it in a 3-minute presentation. And so I've got 20 minutes, so I didn't work very hard on this. But if Ramona had said you have 3 minutes, I would have spent a little more time putting my notes together, figuring out how to organize it. I would have been more thoughtful, because it is more difficult, I think, to translate a lot of expertise content that you have into something that's only 3 minutes long. It's doable, and I think it's a great opportunity for you to translate what you're doing in your research to an audience that's going to matter. I'm going to cover just a few of these things and give you some hints and some advice. But essentially what I'm doing is taking what we do in our public speaking class, which goes for a full semester, and which you give 3 or 4 public speeches, and taking that and putting it into about 10 or 15 minutes. And I think the content give you some good ideas, but it really is going to be your job to turn it into to the final form with practice. So I wanted to kind of combine this top area, voice and body, and tell you about the kind of delivery that could promote that. There's not really, I think, any kind of magic formula, silver bullet kind of thing where here's what you should do. A lot of it goes back to what's already been said. Practice is really the key. And when we talk about practice in our public speaking classes, one of the things we focus on is that you need to have appropriate practice. What does that mean? It means you practice out loud. You say the words. Who do you practice with? You practice with a human being. You practice with someone out there. A lot of times very smart people practice mentally. They read through it, they go through it in their head, and they never get a sense of the pacing, the rhythm. You really do need to say it out loud. How much should you practice? We advocate 10 times. Some of our books in public speaking will say that. You should have at least 10 practices out loud. And a lot of students find that's way too much time to invest in a speech. But if it's an important speech, 10 times is not that many. So in terms of getting ready, practice out loud, practice to a human being, and avoid the kind of the tendency sometimes to practice to a mirror. You don't want to, you're not talking to yourself. That really actually is distracting, I think, when you practice. And trying to build in kind of rehearsed kinds of movements and gestures. In terms of the delivery we advocate is called extemporaneous, that is prepared, practiced, but you don't read a manuscript to us. You have notes that are very detailed, but they really appear more in outline format, because then you have the ability to kind of go through your main points and make adjustments, because I think in this you're going to get a time signal. We only have 30 seconds left. And so we advocate in the public speaking class that if you have a detailed outline of notes and all of a sudden you realize half your speech is, you still have half your speech to go and you only have 30 seconds, you can make the adjustment modifying it. But the more practice you do, the more comfortable you'll become with saying those words and integrating them into oral performance. So in terms of voice, one of the things that we suggest is that you strive for a conversational quality, and that comes from not reading your material but practicing it. But it's a conversational quality, it's not conversational itself. You have to speak a little louder, your vocal rate has to be a little more varied. You have to make sure that you project a little bit more. There has to be a level of energy. Even if you have a microphone, or even if you have people close to you, you still have to speak to the person in the back of the room. You don't want to get into a situation where people are straining to hear you because you're speaking to the person in front. You're speaking to the larger body of people in the room. So that's one of the things that practice helps you to obtain, I think, is getting that feedback from people who can listen to you. In terms of pausing, projecting, body, those kind of things come from becoming comfortable with the situation. And how do you become comfortable? You get lots of opportunities to practice and get feedback. That's why I like the idea of saying the speech out loud a number of times, because then the words start to kind of take a life of their own, and then you've said them out loud and they become more comfortable to you. You need to have very good notes. And since this is a tight time frame, 3 minutes, you really need to make sure your notes work well for you. Most of the times in our public speaking class, we advocate note cards, so you've freed up one hand, and that hand can move more naturally. If you go to the manuscript, you're going to be like this. If you put it on lectern, you're going to be trapped with that. So the note cards can work very well, but the note cards should have that kind of structure that you can adapt to those kinds of changes. Most people will speak a little bit faster when they have a real audience, and that's why practice helps. It gets you into a rhythm. But if you don't practice very much, the nerves will kick in and you'll go a little bit faster, then all of a sudden your 3-minute speech is done in 2 minutes. And so the more you practice, the more comfortable you're going to become with getting within that kind of time range. In terms of eye contact, like Ramona said, eye contact is really the key to maintaining a connection with your audience. And so we advocate that you use your notes, but you look up and you translate the ideas into a conversational style. But the key is not to get so rhythmic in your eye contact that it's like a formula. So sometimes people look here, 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 here. You have to kind of make it more natural and engage the eyes. Yeah?
I have a question on the note cards, because I was under the impression that we couldn't have note cards or a script up there with us.
I don't know, I was looking in the rules, I didn't see
There's
any.
nothing in the rules, but I've watched a lot of
then
presentations.
you don't have them.
Nobody uses
Okay.
it because you're using both of the hands for gesturing. So I would kind of, based on what I've seen, advise against. However, if you're more comfortable with that, it's not
Because if you
disallowed.
freeze, then it's not disallowed, but if you freeze, it doesn't hurt. You
Yeah, and
have
what-
a couple of points.
And I guess what I would say is this becomes your note card. So your slide is really going to be the outline, the format. And so you're going to translate that kind of structure into your slide. And the good thing about that is if the nerves kick in, there's a lot of tension, you can look back here, you can see. And so you want to make sure your slide is also structured in a way that allows you to, it's just like the notes you would have on a note card. So practicing with the slide would be the same kind of thing, I think, as using the note card. So in terms of kind of going back to body, eye contact, gestures, you know, one of the things that we find is that people become more comfortable the more often they do a speech, and those things become more natural. Not that they're rehearsed and not that they're things that are practiced, they become more natural. I think one of the next section was talks about writing for a non-specialist audience, I think is the real challenge that you have because, I mean, in some ways it would be easy to say, you know, turn this into a speech for your grandmother, you know, make her understand. Yet when I read the guidelines, it says you shouldn't be seen as dumbing down the material. So I think the really fine line for you is that you have an educated audience, but it's not an expert audience. And so the educated audience should be able to understand what you're saying, the significance of it, how it relates to them, but you're not getting locked into jargon, specialized language. You're translated into terms that an educated audience should be able to decipher. And so I think that is kind of a fine line of becoming too simple or too simplistic, really. And simple is good, simplistic is when you talk down to an audience. That's where I think where you get some help from getting feedback. Have, like the staff from the library said they would give you feedback. I think that's great because you might think that it's too technical, maybe it's not, you might think that it's just right, maybe there's too much expertise to it. And one of the things in teaching public speaking over the years that I've encountered is if someone is a real expert on a topic, they have a very difficult time turning that into a short speech. I've had many people come to my classes and because of their job or profession, whatever, they come in with a high level of technical knowledge and they're really challenged to put something on a speech topic that they're interested in to like 5 minutes or 7 minutes. Because everything's important to that person. If you're an expert, you know so much, and so you want to tell us everything about it. And I think the real challenge and the opportunity for this kind of project is to help you translate important and significant concepts into language that become meaningful. Like Ramona was saying, we have to share this knowledge with the larger community. Why are we doing this? Why are the taxpayers stepping forth? Why are we getting grants and so forth? So I think that's one of the kinds of challenges. I think if you get down to the bottom, rhythm and pacing, that's really going to come from getting that opportunity to practice and become comfortable. I think that there's always going to be a level of tension, a level of kind of nervousness, but I think John's going to have some suggestions there to deal with that. But we tell people in our public speaking classes, that's really the normal response to something different, and as you go through and get practices in, you're going to be able to manage those kinds of things. And so rhythm and pacing will come from that kind of feedback. Warming up their vocal cords, I think it is good to make sure that you have access to something to drink beforehand, that you've been talking a little bit. If your voice is, you don't want to end up straining yourself, and so you don't want to distract from the presentation by having some issues with voice. So I think that the real challenge you have is taking something that you know a lot about, turning it into a presentation that is meaningful and maintaining that kind of 3-minute time limit. I think it's very doable, but you could probably do 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 25 minutes because you're talking about something that's important to you. And so taking that ability to translate it into something 3 minutes is a real challenge. So that's pretty much what I have. I think that's what I would conclude with. Get lots of time preparing and practicing. Turn this into your note card, I guess, and so you're able to turn and look at this, but not so much that you're actually addressing the screen. You're able to look at the audience and use your note as kind of your organizational framework. So that's all I've got. But any questions or anything you want me to elaborate on? Yeah.
So can you talk about the gesture? Since I saw speakers, they speaking while they walking around.
You know, we advocate in public speaking classes little walking. The reason is it starts to distract from the content, and if you see someone who walks the entire time, it drains the audience for some reason. I mean, I don't know what the psychology is, but it seems to me when I've had speakers who pace the whole time, it really takes the energy level down. So we always advocate in speeches in our classes, which are 5 minutes to 10 minutes long, that you can do some movement and something to relieve tension, but the walking, no. But I think in a 3-minute presentation, not too much movement in terms of walking or pacing. Certainly adjusting your weight, moving your hands, turning, those things I think are good because they create variety. They also relieve a little bit of your tension. Sometimes, I've had students with severe speech anxiety, and one of the things we kind of worked on is just, you know, when they're getting ready to black out, just kind of move a little bit and the oxygen gets going. But I think if you walk too much, the focus would be on your delivery, and then we're not looking at the slide. And I'm not sure how close they'll be tied to the monitor or not. I mean, when they,
we're going to be handling the slides.
okay, so the slide will go up. So, yeah, that's right.